The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association has described the renewed enforcement by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that's NAFDAC, of the ban on the production and sale of alcoholic beverages in sachets and small PET bottles as a serious regulatory misstep with far-reaching economic and governance implications. Now, Mr. Wale Smart Oyeride, as the Jericho General in the chart stated that the action directly contradicts the directive of the Office of the Secretary to the federal government, dated 15th December 2025, suspending the ban as well as the resolution of the House of Representatives of the 14th March 2024, which called for restraint and broader stakeholder engagement. Now, he noted that continued enforcement is already disrupting legitimate businesses, unsettling ongoing investment, placing thousands of jobs at risk, and weakening confidence in Nigeria's regulatory stability at a time when investor trust remains very critical. Well, let's get to that conversation this afternoon, and my guest is no other person than the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Is live in the studio to start the week with me, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyeride. Good afternoon, DG. It's good to have you start the show with us this week. Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, like you listened to my introduction, I talked about your position with regards to this development. I spoke to the DG of MAN, that's Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. I know you're on the same page with this.
Absolutely.
And he also bared his mind on expectations and what they... So tell us your own position, because you are taking us back to say this is a misstep, considering what the SGF had said earlier and what also happened at the House of Representatives. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely, and thanks for having us to share our position on this very sensitive issue.
Yes, it is.
Because it's easy for us to be emotive, for us to be emotional in the context of this engagement. And it's also easy, for labels, to be attached to you. So somebody say you're a drunkard. That's why you are backing the banning of this product. But for us, I think there are bigger issues to look at. There are the overall economic objective or economic situation of the country that you have to look at. And in formulation of policies or implementation of policies, then you have to take cognizance of the whole ecosystem in which you're operating, not looking at one factor and then you take action that we term irrational, that will create more problem for us. And the context within this is for us, it's not the issue of, it's less of profit maximization or profit optimization, as many have said. That it's not about profit. We're not concerned about the health and safety of minors. We are absolutely, and you alluded to it, that the DG of MAN also mentioned it earlier in your conversation. We absolutely are concerned about the health and safety of minors in this environment. We are absolutely concerned about unregulated access to certain products. And we are absolutely in support of regulation, regulation that promotes responsible business practice. We're absolutely in support of that. But when those actions, when they compromise investments, and over 2 trillion naira investment in the value chain of this industry, when they compromise over 1 million jobs, direct and indirect jobs, it raises question for us. When they raise question about consistency in policy and consistency in regulatory action, they raise serious question for us. We might not, you might say those issues are not relevant, but throwing over 500,000 direct employees or over 1 million direct and indirect employees, throwing those outholes into the labor market, it creates economic distortion. It creates a lot of fundamental issues, even insecurity issues that we are not bringing into the context of this conversation. So for us, we have to create a balanced regulation that takes care of the investors' confidence. Because in the first instance, those businesses are not quacks. They were registered in this country. They receive approvals.
Yes.
Those approvals were not provisional approvals. They were not verbal approvals. Their products were tested, the value chain was tested, the labeling compliance was ensured. So from the beginning of those businesses, that industry, the beginning to the end, there was regulation, there were approvals. So suddenly we come up and say those issues, are we saying the regulators made mistakes in approving in the first instance? And if the regulators made mistakes, then we should suffer it. Should investors that willingly, voluntarily come to this environment to invest, should they bear the consequences of the actions of regulators? So we feel the enforcement is not balanced enough. And also it creates a bigger concern for us, for the fact that the House of Representatives in 2024 have made a pronouncement to say this should be suspended pending when there is consultation. And the office of the SGF also said that this, in December, that this should be suspended pending further consultation. Then it begs the question, who exactly is NAFDAC working for? Is it in the same government that agents of the government have said, look, let's suspend this pending extensive consultation? What is NAFDAC afraid of? Why are they afraid of consultation? What we've asked is, show us the evidence that proved that what was is not working again. And for us, in the private sector, NECA with MAN, we say, look, let's prioritize access. You cannot ban access to Sachet, and invariably you are promoting access to the big ones.
Yeah.
If you ban this, are we sure that the borders will be adequately policed to stop illicit access to these products? Those are the questions. Those are questions, and they are fundamental questions that we think should be answered on the table before we take this action that we throw this economy into some very serious.
Because many times when we have issues like this, we tend not to, how do I put it now? I think that we should be having conversations that's between the likes of MAN, NECA, and all, with the NAFDAC and other agencies involved in this. What sort of communications are we having before it gets to a point where enforcement starts, people start to lose monies and all of that?
Let's commend first, this administration. If there's one thing that we've witnessed over time in the life of this administration is the engagement capacity and the willingness to engage. We've seen this with the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, the kind of consultation that went before the bill went to the House, and what is also going on now is quite unusual. We've had deep and fundamental engagement with the Ministry of Interior, and in the reforms being championed by the Minister of Interior and Immigration. We've had engagement. Even till last week, we had a very serious interactive session and engagement with the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund. Different regulators, NESRA, we've engaged NESRA constructively. And when you bring those issues to the table, you listen to stakeholders' concern, you listen to different perspectives, and you come up with a regulation or reform that is all-encompassing, that has stakeholders' acceptance. But what we have seen is a mindset to just feel, look, this is wrong, without an evidence-based perspective to those decisions. And those are our issues. If the conversation had been had, the House of Representatives is not a one-man house. It's not a two-man house. It's not a three-man house. And in their wisdom, they felt, look, this should be suspended, pending adequate consultation. The SGF office is also credible enough to have listened to alternative perspective to ask that, look, let us engage further. So we're a bit lost why NAFDAC's office, why the DG will say, look, irrespective of those counsels that the enforcement will continue. It beats our imagination.
So let's see how this plays out, maybe as enforcement began.
Absolutely.
Because the DG confirmed that some warehouses have been locked up and all of that.
The critical issue is this, and this is not only for NAFDAC, probably across board. Agencies across board. When you go to a manufacturing business or a service-oriented business, and you put sealed, it is justified if that business is producing arms or they are producing illicit drugs, or they are into child trafficking. You can put sealed, but a manufacturing concern, when you put sealed, in the situation where you have not even affirmed the offense, the offense that you said they've committed, when you put sealed, you are sealing the fate of thousands of workers that are working in that place. You are sealing the fate of hundreds of children that won't be able to go to school because their parents will be able to pay school fees. You are sealing the fate of the woman selling gari on the street because those parents that buys gari from the woman, they will be able to patronize. So when you say sealed to the premises of a manufacturing business, that you've not found them to be, as I said, trafficking in arms or trafficking in children, you are doing greater damage to this economy. And those are the big questions that we need to ask.
Let's move further now to see, but let's see how all of this plays out. I'm sure there will still be consultations and all before it degenerates, because I would like this to really degenerate.
Yeah, we hope so.
You know, let's also look at other developments. Tax, of course, I'd like to get your views around that. You threw your weight behind it towards the end of last year, saying it was the way to go and all of that. But implementation, you also talked about that there must be a coordinated effort for implementation so that we could actualize the main aim of this. So what would you say? A month is gone already in 2026.
It's just a month. We know, you know, before the bill, before the conversation actually gets to the House, you can imagine the kind of resistance that the whole reforms about the tax, the kind of resistance it faced. So you have individuals, rightly so or wrongly so, that have made up their mind that this is not going to work. So they are all just waiting for the bill to be passed to continue the resistance. But we can commend the chairman of the committee. I said earlier at many forums, I think we've not witnessed the kind of engagement. You know, even when we do constitutional reviews.
Some will say it's not enough. Some are still saying it's not enough.
Even as at 2 days ago, as at Friday, we still had the chairman of the committee with the organized private sector. We still had consultation. About 5 days ago, if I'm not wrong, there was still a consultation with the HR community on payroll. So we envisage there are going to be some issues in implementation because many of us, when the conversation was going on at the pre-stage, everybody was watching. Because when it's time to deal with the payroll and the reality of what is coming in, what is going out, when it starts setting in, that's when many people just start waking up. That's a look, wait, we need more clarification on this. And the committee has been magnanimous enough to continue to engage. So those teething problems that we find, we think they might continue till the end of the first quarter. But the most important thing is the committee is willing to continue to engage. You know, no matter the strata of the economy, I think they are willing to continue to engage. And once you engage, you know, once social dialogue is going on, you know, you've solved the problem really.
So we expect consultations and engagement to continue.
Absolutely,
with regards to
going on. The day the committee stops engaging, then they have us also in the trenches with them.
Well, let's move further to our economic issues now. Many say we've gotten to a turning point. I don't know how well you believe that or agree with that. At this point, everyone says Nigeria has gotten to the stabilization and now we need to start to consolidate and all. But my concern really is that the proximity to 2027, some are saying that is also a concern. How does it come to you?
Absolutely. It's a concern. Traditionally, and rightly so, the concern is when the year before the election, you hardly see governance taking the front burner. Basically, it's more of politics, more of political activities.
Yeah, it's taking over.
And we just hope. You know, I was in a state. I've been in 2 states in the last 1 week, and there was concern by some stakeholders about that. Look, it seems the governor have just stopped working. You know, the energy in which he started the year, or he started 2025, it seems to have stopped working, which was a concern for them. We were scared of alluding it to politics. We were scared of alluding it to political activities that will commence. But it's a big concern for all stakeholders that we hope that those managing the economy will not be carried away with politics, so that we don't lose track of the little gains that we have made. Have we made some gains? If you look at the indices across board, I think we seems to have been we have been going in the right direction, as it were. So sustaining that momentum and keeping the reforms alive, those are the critical issues that we'll see in 2026. Big question you really ask. Yeah.
So indeed, what would now be your entire outlook? We saw inflation, closing the year pretty well, and now of course, we'll be expecting January inflation figures maybe sometime next week or so. But by and large, things work, normal circumstances, business as usual, proper implementation. How do you see us growing better? Because that growth is something that everyone keeps talking about. If we could grow well as we're growing with our population rates and all of that, then we start to address poverty. Which is
the potential is huge, for this country to grow. And part of the things we have to deal with are those inherent contradictions.
True.
That just like this regulation, a arm of government said suspend, a high-profile office, the secretary to the government said suspend, and then an agency of the same government is saying, I'm not going to suspend. Those are contradictions. If I'm an investor and I have loads and loads of dollars to invest in this economy, I will look at that incident to say, look, where exactly is in charge here, which creates the kind of problem. So we have to deal with inherent contradictions. Yeah. The government should not lose track of governance and not allow politics to take center stage. That might be that might be a calamity for us. And the things that we've seen that we are doing right, we continue. And those things that we think are not working, we should not be shy to say, no, let's turn this around.
So finally, again, members of the private sector, because whenever we talk about economic issues, your role remains very important.
Absolutely.
And I am concerned, looking at your businesses generally, would we really agree that we're getting to that turning point? In reality, what is
are we at the turning point? Absolutely no. We are not at that turning point.
Okay.
Is there? Are we seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel?
Okay.
Yeah, there seems to be. Is the oxygen pipe? Is it flowing gradually? Yes, it's flowing gradually. But is it sufficient enough to keep you alive for another 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years? That is debatable. But we just hope that, I said, those things that are working, we continue to work, and those things that we have escalated as being constrained to doing business in this country, to achieving the Nigerian first policy. Because for us, that is very key. We need to promote this country. We need to buy what we are producing in this country, because that eventually reduces the challenges we have with job creation, reduces our propensity for dollars. It reduces a lot of things which rightly will fall into place once we get those fundamentals correctly.
Mr. Adewale Smart-Awiri, I must thank you so much, DG Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. It's good to really have you start the week for us on Business Nigeria. We don't take this for granted.
Thank you for having us once again.
Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, viewers.
All right.